From the Ashes, Ministry of Curiosities, Volume 6. Written by C.J. Archer. Narrated by Shiromi Arserio. Chapter 1. Yorkshire, December 1889. Miss Holloway, stop slouching. Mrs. Denk's cane smacked across my back. I felt the bite of it against my skin, even through all the layers of clothing. My breath left my body and my eyes watered. I arched away from her. Young ladies do not have round shoulders. I gritted my teeth until the sting lessened. I am not a lady. Instead of straightening my back, I tipped my head forward so that the book balanced there slipped off and crashed to the floor. It landed open, bending some pages and stretching the spine. Air hissed through Mrs. Denk's nose. Whenever she became angry, her heavy breaths hissed through her nose. The headmistress and deportment teacher at the school for wayward girls seemed to become angry a lot. Mostly with me. I expected her stick to come down on my back again, but it did not. She stepped into view. The other girls in the old banqueting hall shuffled away, clearing space around us. They sensed confrontation, and if there was one thing the girls at the so-called school hated, it was confrontation, particularly with the formidable Mrs. Denk. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the girl I shared a room with, Alice, shake her head, warning me not to cross the headmistress again. I tried to convey with a look that I would be all right, that Mrs. Denk wouldn't harm me, only attempt to frighten me with her sharp tongue and punishments, which were nothing compared to what I'd experienced in years past. I must have failed, because Alice looked worried, and she wasn't usually a worrier. Pick that up. The tiny lines around Mrs. Denk's mouth whitened with the pursing of her lips. The rest of her face was otherwise smooth. A remarkable feat for a woman who must be in her late 40s. Some of the other girls speculated that she'd done a deal with the devil to keep her skin youthful. But if that were true, she should have asked the devil to stop her hair from growing grey too. Mrs. Denk rarely showed emotion, except for the occasional tightening or flattening of her lips, and that was more likely the reason for the lack of wrinkles. I would never think of a wrinkly face as something to be lamented again, but rather a sign of a passionate nature and a full life. I bent to pick up the book, not because she'd ordered me to, but because I didn't like to see a book damaged, even a dull one about the art of being a lady. Instead of returning it to my head, I placed it on the occasional table that made up part of the obstacle course through which I was attempting to maneuver. Return it to your head, and continue with the exercise, Mrs. Denk said in her crispest tone, which had more than one girl trembling. Once again Alice shook her head at me. We'd only known one another 10 days, but she already had my measure. Most likely because I'd clashed with Mrs. Denk from my first day. I didn't like a bully, and the headmistress was the worst kind, a bully in sheep's clothing. At least Lincoln had never pretended to be anything else. I swallowed down the lump in my throat that formed whenever I thought of him, which, unfortunately, was often. Instead, I summoned the anger that was never far away. Not anger directed at him. It was no longer as sharp or hot, but anger at myself for allowing him to treat me as he had. No, I said, with more calmness than I felt. I knew I presented a tough exterior to Mrs. Denk and the other girls and teachers, but inside part of me quailed when she held the cane in both hands, and her eyes brightened with a cruel gleam. If it weren't for my anger fueling me, I wouldn't have tested her patience so. But I found I couldn't quell my anger any more than I could accept her authority over me. Every order she gave, every attempt to turn me into a ladylike figure of grace and poise, triggered my rebellious streak. Where had the bloody thing been when Lincoln had bundled me into the coach and sent me away from Lichfield?
Sample complete. Ready to continue?